Hello, I'm Ryan Williams, Chairman of the House Republican Caucus. I have today with me my good friend Jim Coley for Chairman's Chat. Jim, welcome to Chairman's Chat.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. What I do like to tell people is a little bit first about your district, the Fighting 97th District.
The Fighting 97th District includes Bartlett, Northeast Memphis, Berkeley, and Cordova.
Wow, okay.
So it's a very big district, extends probably 10 miles from one end to the other.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like it's about the size of my district, actually, but you have 4 cities and I've got 3, but great place to visit. I've been there twice since I've got elected, so it's great to see that. So one of the things that's really important to me, if you've watched any of the Chairman's Chats, is the idea about eating. I enjoy a good meal, and particularly a meal that is unique to a certain part of Tennessee. So I would ask you to tell me, if I was coming through town to play one of those Memphis soccer teams that seem to be so good with my son, where would you tell me to grab something to eat?
Well, there are a number of places that I'd encourage you to go to, but the place that I would take you to probably serves the best steak in the state of Tennessee, and it's a place called Folks Folly, which is on Mendenhall, which is rather famous for the name of the place came about. It was a fellow named Folks, and he thought it would be folly to start a steakhouse in Shelby County, and so he named it Folks Folly. It became successful and has been there for over 40 years.
Yes, I actually know a little bit about this restaurant because of an event there that occurred last fall, but I do know that it's a great place to eat. I tell people I had never heard of it until last fall. And then I was thinking, where is this place? And so they were telling me the steaks are evidently amazing.
They are.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, one of the other things that I like for people to share about in a Chairman's Chat, for those in your district might know this, but you know, those, or maybe not, but those outside of your district who may not know you, why did you choose to serve? You're one of our senior members here in the House Republican Caucus, but what made you want to get in public service to start with?
Well, I think the thing that encouraged me to get in public service is I was a newspaper carrier for a number of years for the old Memphis Press-Simeter and for the Commercial Appeal. And one of the things that I did as a newspaper carrier is I read the newspaper every day. So I was very knowledgeable about current events. And one of the things that I found out when I was in 10th grade, we had a test on current events. I made hundreds on everything, and so I was really pleased at that. And I read political opinions and became involved and engaged in politics as a result of my interest in current events. And this year marks my 50th year that I've been involved in politics. My first campaign was in 1968 when I went out and campaigned for Richard Nixon in my neighborhood.
Oh, wow. Well, that's amazing. I didn't realize that. That's a long time.
It is a long time.
Yeah, well, it's great. Well,
I'm very old.
No, not too bad. It's like a fine wine.
I am vintage.
Yeah, it is. Hey, you know, one of the things when I first got elected in 2010, you and I didn't know each other that well, mainly because I'm one of those East Tennessee guys and you're a West Tennessee guy. But, you know, one of the things that became relatively clear to me, and particularly because getting to know your assistant and your staff, Stephanie, I quickly came to find out that as it relates to victims of human trafficking, a lot of people don't realize this, but most of the first pieces of legislation in the United States that was implemented in the state of Tennessee was done by Jim Coley.
That is correct.
Yeah, and so I think it's amazing really to see, unfortunately, as this problem has grown across the nation and unfortunately in our state, you have really championed for those victims who seem to be caught up, or those that enable others to be caught up in this system. So tell me and those that might be listening, why is this such an important topic to Jim Coley?
Well, this issue came to me through my son, and he went to high school with a young man named Ryan Dalton, who the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation wanted to hire. And Ryan Dalton had been to Nepal. And while he was in Nepal, he found it appalling to find out that there was so much human trafficking that went on in that country. And so when he returned to the United States, he began to look at the state of Tennessee and the United States to observe how much human trafficking existed. And he found out that it was a lot more pervasive in the state of Tennessee, and particularly in the state of Georgia, because of Atlanta being a big crossroads for it. And so he came to me through my son, and it was part of his ministry with his church. And I began to talk to him and with the TBI, and they indeed found out that it was very widespread in the state of Tennessee. So I began to introduce legislation to protect, primarily it does two things. It prevents the exploitation of people who are workers, and also those who are sexually abused and used primarily as sex slaves or sex workers who are underage and very vulnerable as children. So we began our task of introducing a number of pieces of legislation. I think over the years, I've carried over 20 different pieces of legislation dealing with human trafficking. And when we first became involved, Margie Quinn over at the TBI and Ryan Dalton and my son, we were in the middle rung of states regarding our strength of laws regarding human trafficking. And since then, we have moved to the number one position in the United States in strength of laws that protect individuals from human trafficking. And that's something, there's a lot of things that are very positive about the state of Tennessee. Its economic growth, its low taxes. But that's one thing that I'm very proud of, is the assistance and, that I've had from the TBI, Ryan Dalton, Mary Littleton, Deborah Moody, and other people that have been engaged in passing legislation to protect the abuse of these young girls primarily and young boys from sexual exploitation.
Yeah, it's really amazing. It was an eye-opening experience for me over the last several years, not just to see your work there, but to just see the breadth of the work of what you've done there. It is amazing for the mind to comprehend that we need these laws, to be brutally honest with you. And I think that's why these people operated undetected for so long in Tennessee, because our minds couldn't grasp it. But I think part of advocating and advancing our principles is communicating with communities and law enforcement about what we do see. And so you're to be commended for that. I think one of the things also that you and I do is we serve on the finance committee together. And you're always advocating. You know, sometimes laws are not the only thing that we do. But I was proud to support last year your advocating for additional funding for those who are victims of sex trafficking. It's one thing to cut off the flow and to make it harder to do that. But, okay, now we have these people who are victims. How can we help them? And so last year, with your leadership, we were able to spend, I think it was a little over $550,000.
That is correct.
On 4 different agencies across the state to do that. And so it's really good to see that happening. Of course, it seems like it's never enough resources that we can do to help these folks. But it's great to see that work being introduced across the state as well.
Yeah, that's something that was very important last year. Was the first time that we had actually funded agencies that provided services to those victims of human trafficking who needed to transition from their former lives in which they were exploited to ones in which they became productive citizens. And so that was very important. And there were 4 groups, as you indicated, that we did fund, and that was very important to them.
Yeah, it was great to see that money being used. I had an opportunity, one of those entities had decided that there was unfortunately a need for it in my community. So they're looking in Cookeville now to do that. But Jim, I want to thank you for your hard work and a heritage of service that you have for the 97th District, and how that simple trip for your son's friend has really changed the trajectory for your life legislatively. Right. And so we appreciate your service, appreciate you coming on today, and look forward to hearing about more great things that you're doing this year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.